The 10 Deadliest Wars in Human History, ranked by death toll. A single bullet rips through the night. One man falls. And suddenly, the world is on fire. That's how it always starts. One spark. One decision. Millions pay the price. Tonight, we're pulling the bloodiest threads in human history. We're counting down the 10 deadliest wars in human history, ranked by the horrifying number of lives they claimed. Soldiers, civilians, men, women, and children swallowed by battle, famine, and disease. These aren't dry history lessons. These are stories of betrayal, madness, courage, and unimaginable horror. Stories that still echo in our world today. If you love dark, untold history and mind-bending, what-if moments, you're in the right place. Hit that like button right now. It helps us bring more of these stories to life. And if you're new here, subscribe to History's Untold Threads and turn on notifications. We untangle the past, one terrifying thread at a time. Let's begin our descent into humanity's darkest chapters. Number 10. The Napoleonic Wars. 7 million lives lost. The year is 1812. Napoleon Bonaparte stands at the edge of his empire, eyes burning with ambition. Russia will fall, he tells his generals, voice cold as steel. We march on Moscow. Europe is already mine. His soldiers cheered that day. They had no idea they were marching into hell. What started as one man's dream of glory exploded into a continent-wide slaughter. From Spain to the gates of Moscow, Napoleon's wars redrew the map of Europe in blood. The numbers are staggering. Over 7 million people, soldiers and civilians, died in the Napoleonic Wars. Entire villages burned. Families torn apart. Mothers watched their sons march away, never to return. But the real horror came in Russia. As Napoleon's grand army of over 600,000 men pushed deeper into Russian territory, the Russians used a brutal tactic, scorched earth. They burned their own crops, poisoned wells, and left nothing for the invaders. One French soldier later wrote in his diary, "We ate horse flesh. Then we ate the dead. God forgive us." The winter of 1812 became a frozen graveyard. Temperatures dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius. Men froze where they stood. Only 40,000 of Napoleon's mighty army made it back alive. Emotional pause. Imagine being that soldier. You followed a genius across Europe. You believed in glory. And now you're watching your best friend die in the snow, begging for a bullet to end his suffering. The Napoleonic Wars didn't just kill millions. They shattered the old order of Europe and planted the seeds for even greater conflicts. What if Napoleon had never invaded Russia? Would he have remained emperor? Would France still dominate Europe today? One decision changed everything. Number 9. The Russian Civil War, 8 to 12 million dead. The world is already bleeding from World War I. But in Russia, true hell was just beginning. Tsar Nicholas II had fallen. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power with a promise of peace and bread. But peace never came. Instead, brother turned against brother. Red Army versus White Army. Communists against monarchists, anarchists, and nationalists. The country tore itself apart in a brutal civil war that lasted 6 years. One Red Commissar reportedly told his troops, "Kill them all. The more we kill, the fewer enemies we leave behind." Mass executions. Forced famines. The Red Terror. Entire regions were wiped out. Typhus and starvation claimed more lives than bullets. A survivor later recalled watching her neighbor's family dragged away in the middle of the night. "They took my friend's father. We never saw him again. We ate grass to survive." Between 8 and 12 million people died, many of them civilians caught in the crossfire of ideology. This war didn't just destroy Russia. It gave birth to the Soviet Union, a superpower that would shape the rest of the 20th century. What if the White Army had won? Would communism have been stopped in its cradle? Would the 20th century have been less bloody? Number 8. The 30 Years' War, 8 to 12 million dead. Europe was supposed to be Christian. Instead, it became a slaughterhouse in God's name. It began as a religious conflict between Catholics and Protestants in the Holy Roman Empire. But greed, power, and revenge turned it into the most devastating war Europe had ever seen before the World Wars. Armies marched across the continent, looting everything in their path. Soldiers didn't fight for faith anymore, they fought for pay and plunder. One German chronicler wrote in despair, "We have seen mothers eating their own children. Cities that once thrived are now inhabited only by wolves." Entire regions lost 50% to 70% of their population. The 30 Years' War turned Central Europe into a graveyard. Plague followed the soldiers like a faithful dog. By the time the war finally ended in 1648, up to 12 million people were dead. The Holy Roman Empire was shattered. Modern nation-states began to rise from the ashes. The worst part? Most of those who died never even knew why they were fighting. What if this war had never happened? Would Europe have unified under one faith? Or would the horrors we saw in the 20th century have come even earlier? Number 7. Timur's Conquests, 8 to 20 million dead. The year is 1398. A one-eyed, lame warlord named Timur, also called Tamerlane, stands before the gates of Delhi. He looks at his generals and says with a cold smile, "Kill every man who can hold a sword. Build me towers of their skulls so high that even God will see my wrath." And they did. Timur wasn't just a conqueror. He was a hurricane of death across Asia, the Middle East, and India. From 1370 to 1405, his armies left nothing but ruins in their wake. In Isfahan alone, after a rebellion, Timur ordered the systematic slaughter of over 70,000 people. His soldiers built pyramids of skulls, some towers reaching 20 meters high, as a warning to anyone who dared resist. One survivor later described the horror. The streets ran red with blood. Children were torn from their mothers' arms. The air smelled of death for weeks. Timur's campaigns killed between 8 and 20 million people, a staggering number for that era. Entire cities were erased. Civilizations that had thrived for centuries were reduced to ash. He once said, "I am the sword of God. Where I go, empires fall." And fall they did. What if Timur had lived longer and turned his eyes toward Europe? Would the Renaissance have been stopped before it even began? Would Christianity have survived his wrath? This man's bloody threads still echo in the fears of Central Asia today. Number 6. The Lushan Rebellion, 13 to 36 million dead. China, 755 AD. A powerful general named Lushan kneels before Emperor Xuanzong. But ambition burns in his heart. One night, Lushan makes his move. He declares himself emperor and launches a rebellion that tears the mighty Tang dynasty apart. What followed was pure apocalypse. For 8 long years, China burned. Armies clashed in endless battles. Cities were sacked. The once glorious capital of Chang'an, one of the largest cities in the world, was left in ruins. Famine and disease became the real killers. People resorted to cannibalism. One historical record chillingly notes, "Men ate their wives and children. Corpses lined the roads for hundreds of miles." Between 13 and 36 million people perished, possibly more than half of China's population at the time. The golden age of the Tang dynasty was shattered forever. Imagine being a mother in that time, holding your starving child, knowing there is no food left in the entire province. The desperation. The heartbreak. The Lushan Rebellion didn't just kill millions. It changed China's destiny and weakened it for centuries. What if the rebellion had never happened? Would China have become the undisputed superpower of the medieval world? How different would global history look today? Number 5. The Three Kingdoms period, up to 40 million dead. Epic ancient Chinese battle sounds, swords clashing, arrows flying, war horns. 220 AD. China fractures into 3 mighty kingdoms, Wei, Shu, and Wu. For nearly a century, these 3 powers fought for total control in an era that feels like the real-life Game of Thrones, except far bloodier. Legendary warriors like Cao Cao, Liu Bei, and Sun Quan clashed in battles that decided the fate of millions. One of the most famous moments came at the Battle of Red Cliffs. As fire ships slammed into Cao Cao's massive fleet, a Shu general reportedly laughed and shouted, "Today, the river itself fights for us." But behind the legends was unimaginable suffering. Constant warfare, conscription of farmers, destroyed farmlands, and waves of disease killed up to 40 million people, roughly two-thirds of China's population. Families were ripped apart. Children grew up knowing nothing but war. One survivor's account reads, "We buried our brothers in the morning and marched again by afternoon. There was no end to the dying." The Three Kingdoms period wasn't just about heroic battles. It was about an entire generation sacrificed on the altar of power. What if one kingdom had won much earlier? Would China have unified sooner and changed the course of Asian and world history forever? If these stories of unimaginable loss are hitting you as hard as they hit me, do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe to History's Untold Threads. We're only halfway through the deadliest wars humanity has ever seen. You don't want to miss what's coming. Number 4. World War I, 15 to 22 million dead. June 28, 1914. Sarajevo. A young Serbian nationalist named Gavrilo Princip steps forward and fires 2 shots. Those 2 bullets killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand and triggered the death of an entire generation. Within weeks, the great powers of Europe, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, France, Britain, tumbled into war like dominoes. They called it the war to end all wars. They were wrong. Young men across Europe rushed to enlist with flowers in their rifles and songs on their lips. One British soldier wrote to his mother, "Don't worry, Mum. We'll be home by Christmas." They were home by Christmas, in coffins. The Western Front became a nightmare of mud, rats, and machine guns. Soldiers lived like animals in trenches filled with water and corpses. Chemical gas drifted across no man's land, melting lungs and burning eyes. A soldier at the Battle of the Somme described the horror. "I saw my best friend cut in half by machine gun fire. He was still alive for 30 seconds, staring at me, begging me to end it. I couldn't move." Over 4 years, the war consumed 15 to 22 million lives. Entire villages lost every young man they had. A whole generation, poets, artists, future leaders, was wiped out. The war didn't just kill people. It destroyed faith in the old world. The Treaty of Versailles planted the seeds of revenge that would explode again just 20 years later. What if Gavrilo Princip had missed his shots that day in Sarajevo? Would the 20th century have been a century of peace instead of endless bloodshed? Number 3. The Mongol Conquests, 20 to 60 million dead. The steppes of Mongolia. A man named Temujin is proclaimed Genghis Khan, universal ruler. He looks at his warriors and declares, "I will conquer the world. Those who surrender will live. Those who resist will die screaming." And they did. The Mongol hordes moved like lightning. They conquered from China to Persia, from Korea to Hungary. Their tactics were brilliant and merciless. They slaughtered entire cities to spread terror so others would surrender without fighting. In one Persian city, after a rebellion, the Mongols killed every living soul. A survivor hiding in a well later emerged to find. Only owls and crows lived there now. The streets were piled so high with bodies that I walked on death itself. Historians estimate the Mongol conquests killed between 20 and 60 million people, up to 10% of the entire world's population at the time. Entire civilizations were erased from the map. Yet there is a dark irony. The Mongols also created the largest land empire in history and reopened the Silk Road, allowing trade and ideas to flow. But at what cost? What if the Mongols had successfully conquered all of Europe? Would Western civilization as we know it even exist? Or would the world today speak Mongolian and bow to the descendants of Genghis Khan? Number 2. The Taiping Rebellion, 20 to 70 million dead. Southern China. A failed scholar named Hong Xiuquan has a vision that changes everything. After reading a Christian pamphlet, he becomes convinced he is the younger brother of Jesus Christ. He declares war on the Qing dynasty. He will create the heavenly kingdom of great peace, the Taiping. Millions of desperate peasants join him. They believe they are fighting for God himself. Hong Xiuquan stands before his massive army and proclaims, "We will destroy the demons of the Qing. This land will become God's kingdom on earth." What followed was one of the bloodiest civil wars in human history. The Taiping forces captured cities, enforced strange religious laws, and fought the imperial Qing armies in brutal battles across China. At its peak, the Heavenly Kingdom controlled large parts of southern China with an army of over 1 million men. But paradise turned into hell. Internal power struggles, mass executions, and total war led to unimaginable suffering. Cities were burned, farmlands destroyed. Disease and starvation followed. One Qing official described the aftermath of a battle. "We walked for days and saw nothing but corpses. Mothers holding dead children. Rivers choked with bodies. Between 20 and 70 million people died, making this possibly the second deadliest conflict in human history. The rebellion lasted 14 years and nearly toppled the Qing dynasty. It weakened China so severely that foreign powers carved it up even further. What if the Taiping Rebellion had succeeded? Would China have become a strange Christian theocracy in the 19th century? How would that have changed the rise of modern China and the entire world? These stories are heavy. They show us what humanity is truly capable of when hatred and ambition take control. If you're still watching, thank you. It means you value real, deep history. Do me a huge favor. Hit the like button if these untold threads are blowing your mind. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a new episode. Comment below, which war shocked you the most so far? We're about to reach the deadliest war in human history. You're not going to want to miss this. Number 1. World War II. 70 to 85 million dead. September 1st, 1939. German tanks roll across the Polish border. Adolf Hitler stands in his command center, eyes gleaming with fanaticism. He turns to his generals and says, "Today we begin the conquest of Europe. This war will decide the fate of the world for 1,000 years." What followed was the deadliest conflict in human history. From the beaches of Normandy to the jungles of the Pacific, from the frozen steppes of Russia to the devastated cities of China, the entire planet became a battlefield. Over 70 to 85 million people, roughly 3% of the entire world's population, were killed. This wasn't just war. This was hell on earth. In the Soviet Union, the siege of Leningrad lasted 872 days. Citizens ate wallpaper glue, rats, and the bodies of the dead to survive. One survivor later recounted holding her dying sister. She whispered, "Don't cry for me. Just promise you'll live." I promised, but I never forgot her face. In the Pacific, American Marines stormed beaches under relentless machine gun fire. One soldier wrote home, "We hit the sand and men started dropping like flies around me. I saw my sergeant's head explode right in front of me. I kept running. What else could I do?" But the true horror reached its peak in the Holocaust. Nazi death camps systematically murdered 6 million Jews and millions of others, disabled people, Roma, political prisoners, homosexuals. A survivor of Auschwitz later described the moment he arrived. "They separated us. I watched my mother and little sister being led away. My mother looked back at me one last time. That was the last time I ever saw them." Meanwhile, in Asia, the Second Sino-Japanese War brought its own nightmares: the rape of Nanking, Unit 731 biological experiments, and millions more dead from famine and brutality. The war finally ended with the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, moments of such unimaginable destruction that the world has never been the same. World War II didn't just kill tens of millions. It reshaped borders, birthed the United Nations, started the Cold War, and left scars that still define geopolitics today. What if Hitler had never invaded the Soviet Union in 1941? Or what if the Allies had lost the Battle of Britain? Would the swastika still fly over Europe? Would we live in a very different, and much darker, world today? From Napoleon's frozen retreat, to Timur's towers of skulls, from China's endless civil wars to the global catastrophe of World War II, these 10 wars didn't just take lives. They took futures, dreams, entire bloodlines. They show us the absolute worst of humanity, the terrifying speed at which ambition, hatred, religion, and ideology can spiral into mass death. But they also reveal something else. They reveal our resilience, our ability to rebuild, our capacity to learn, even if we often fail to do so. The threads of these wars are still woven into our present, in borders we fight over, in alliances we form, in the weapons we fear. The real question is this: Will we finally untangle these dark threads, or will we allow new ones to form? We've journeyed through humanity's bloodiest chapters tonight. Some of these stories shocked you. Some broke your heart. All of them deserve to be remembered. Which war hit you the hardest? Was it the Taiping Rebellion's madness, the Mongol Empire of bones, or the sheer scale of World War II? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you want me to make full deep dive, what-if episodes on any of these wars, just comment the number or name. The more requests, the faster I'll make them. If this video helped you see history in a new light, please do 3 things right now. Smash that like button. It really helps small channels like ours grow. Subscribe to History's Untold Threads and turn on the notification bell. Share this video with someone who loves history. Thank you for spending nearly 40 minutes with me in the darkest corners of the past. It means more than you know. Until next time, stay curious, remember the fallen, and never stop untangling the threads of history. Now go hug someone you love. And remember, history isn't just the past. It's a warning. I'm Ibrahim from History's Untold Threads. We'll see you in the next one.